So I'm going to talk a little bit about positioning in web design. And it's important to know when to use positioning and when to use margin. Margin is to put some space between two elements. Positioning is used to literally position certain elements in certain places on the page. We don't want to do things like using margin left 200 pixels. If you need to position something that much, that's when positioning comes in. There's four main types of positioning we use in web design: static, fixed, relative, and absolute. In this first part of the video, I want to talk basically about static, fixed, and relative. So static is the default. It's the way everything flows. You have a header, you have a row, you have a container, you have an image, you have a row, another image, and that's exactly what you see. Default is static, so the position is the way it's written in the code. You don't ever have to really do anything. You don't have to declare position static. That's just the default. Next, I want to focus on position fixed. And fixed positioning will take an element, the element it's applied to, and literally fix it to your browser window. It will not go anywhere. It takes it out of the workflow and locks it into place. So for example, if I were to come to this header here, go to my CSS, and say I want a position, I can type, honestly, position fixed. Now you can see that that header has locked into place. It's not moving, and everything is scrolling underneath it. Of course, what we've done is we've pulled it out of the workflow, so that comes with its own set of challenges. You can see that by pulling the header out of our workflow, the next items on the page, the next elements, have automatically moved up underneath. So a lot of people want to go in and they want to add margin, they want to put margin at the bottom of the header, they want to do things like that, and we don't want to do that. We actually want to give it some positioning, right? We need to now position this close to the fixed so that people can see everything and have the layout the way we want. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the position of relative. I'm going to go right here to the row and type in position relative. When dealing with relative positioning, we're talking about moving it around the browser. We're talking about positioning it a certain number of pixels from the top or the bottom, the left or the right. So in this case, we've done position relative, and I want to push it away from the top, the same amount of space that my header and my margin on the header is. So I'm going to put it at 145 pixels, and now it flows a little bit better. However, you can see that it's still coming above this locked or fixed header. What's happening is that the fixed positioning took the header out of the workflow. Well, relative positioning is also taking this out of the workflow. It's reshuffling. So the quick fix here is we need to go into the header and we need to fix the z-index. Now the z-index is axis. Think about an XY axis. So the x-axis runs from left to right, the y-axis is top to bottom, and a z-axis is the dimension. It's layers, like in Photoshop. Everything by default goes on a z-index of 1. So if we say, look, I want my header to be on a z-index of 2, this is now above this, as evidenced by this, right? So fixed positioning takes out of the workflow and locks it into place. Relative will allow you to position it based on number of pixels from top, bottom, left, or right. If you see that if I put in a left pixels of 145, it will actually move it to the left. Fixed, relative, those are important ones for you to know. In the next video, I want to talk about absolute positioning.